Welcome to Larry the Alchemist, where we discuss all things heavy metal and hard rock. On today's episode, backing tracks. Do they add to the live experience or do they take away from the live experience? I just got back from the 70,000 tons of metal cruise. I'm still been kind of lazy about getting around to trying to make a video on that experience. But on the boat, for those who may not know, 70,000 tons of metal. It's a 5-day cruise, 60 bands. Each band does 2 sets. And I noticed that there were a number of bands, the bigger bands, especially the power metal bands, that were using backing tracks. And I just wanted to make a video on this topic. I was also inspired by the YouTube channel Classic Album Review. It's one of my favorite YouTube channels. He did something similar like this, talking about live bands and stuff like that. So I'll leave a link to his channel down below. Make sure you check it out. So for those who may not know what a backing track is, it can mean kind of a couple of different things. It's basically something that's pre-recorded that the band uses to enhance the sound of the show. Now, again, it can mean a few different things. There's times when people use backing tracks for like effects. For instance, the beginning of Number of the Beast, the Woe to You, or that's a backing track. He's not doing it. It's not live. I have no problem with that. There's bands that'll have sounds of airplanes or helicopters or something, or artillery fire, things like that. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm also not really thinking of lip syncing. This is where the singer is not singing and there's an actual track, pre-recorded track with his voice on it. Kiss, Paul Stanley got a lot of heat for this. Blackley Lawless, people were saying that he was using backing tracks. I would assume that most people would prefer to hear the singer sing live. So maybe the whole lip syncing thing would be a totally different video. For this, I'm talking about when bands use backing tracks to just make it sound more like the album, to fill out the sound. Like a lot of the power metal bands have a lot of keyboards in it. So there were some of these bands that there were backing tracks playing keyboards. They have a lot of vocals. There were backing tracks where the singer or the chorus would come in a song and it would sound like there were 1,000 people singing. And what happens is that for them to do that, usually the drummer has to be listening with what's called a click track. It's like it's a time, a beat that's going on that's helping them stay in time with the backing track. So what happens because of this, it forces the band to play the songs exactly the same way every night, and it makes the songs sound the same every night. And as I mentioned on the cruise, every band does 2 sets. So, and they always separate it by 2 days. So some bands, they embrace this concept and do 2 different sets. Creator did an old school set and they did a set of new stuff. Other bands don't, and they just do the exact same show. And when those bands do that, you really see, especially the ones that are using the backing tracks, how it makes everything sound exactly the same. Their show sounds exactly the same. Now, me personally, I want my live experience to sound different than the album. If I want to listen to the album, I'll listen to the album. If I hear it live, I want it to be a unique experience. I want it to be something different. I enjoy hearing a band interpreting what they did on the album and making it work on a live stage. For instance, Randy Rhoads used to overdub a lot of guitar parts. Well, live, he had to figure out how to do it on one guitar. I find that very interesting. So when you listen to Ozzy and Randy live, like on the tribute album, the songs sound different than they did on the studio album. This may upset some people, but I've never liked Rush live. And the reason I liked Rush in the 70s live, but as time went on, I didn't, and I've seen them a couple times, I don't enjoy them live. And this sort of sounds strange. And the reason why I don't enjoy them live is because they sound exactly like the record. I don't want to hear it sound exactly like the record. Now, Rush, it's a little bit of a different thing. They were sort of controlling these backing tracks. They step on a pedal or trigger something that, makes the background vocals come in. They're a little bit of a different situation. I don't really know exactly how they do it. But these bands that I'm talking about, they just got all these keyboard parts going on. They got all these vocals going on. There's just all this stuff going on. And now they would say, well, we can't reproduce the album live, and it's not going to sound the same if it doesn't sound like the record. Like when Blackie Lawless was asked about it, I forget exactly what he said. I think he said the lead vocals, he was singing, but there were vocals added in to make it sound bigger. I forget how he put it, but I would rather have the band not sound like the record and know that what's happening on stage is a unique one-time thing. And bands in the 70s, this is how they operated. Deep Purple, Led Zeppelin, Jimi Hendrix, Cream. These bands were all known for getting up on stage and just going for it. That's why if you line up a whole bunch of Zeppelin bootlegs, you'll hear that they're a little bit and sometimes really different, especially if you're jumping years. Listen to Dazed and Confused in 1969. Listen to it in 74, 75. It has completely evolved. It's changed. The band was different every night. A great example I like to use is the first time I ever saw Ritchie Blackmore, it might have been even the first time I heard Deep Purple, there was a video for the song No, No, No. And it was them on like I think a German TV station or something. And he's got like that pilgrim hat on and everything. And I just loved it. And I just thought Blackmore was so cool. So in the last few years on YouTube, they apparently played the song 2 other times. They played it 3 times in total, the one that they used for the video, and they played it 2 other times that they didn't use. And what's fascinating is that every time they played it, Blackmore plays a different intro. I mean, a really different intro. He plays a different solo, really different solo. John Lord plays a different solo. Ian Pace plays, they play it different every time they did it. And I thought, like, wow, like who does that anymore? Nobody does that anymore. No bands take that kind of chance. And you listen back to these old recordings. Listen to Jimi Hendrix, Band of Gypsies. You can listen to all the shows that he did at the Fillmore for that recording. And you can hear how different they did the songs every night. Same thing with Deep Purple, with like outtakes from around the Made in Japan time. And because of that, it made it a unique one-time experience. The live experience was something separate from the album. And I'm not old enough to remember, but I'm guessing that back then people didn't expect them to sound exactly like the record. The live experience was its own thing. That's why live albums were also really popular, because the songs sounded different. It was a different experience. Well, now with the backing tracks, it forces everybody, because you're playing with these tracks, to it's very rigid, it's very stiff, it's very sterile in my opinion. All these vocals and keyboard things going on, it just to me it doesn't make it sound live. It makes it sound really kind of stiff, and it doesn't have any kind of spontaneous feel to it. On the cruise, Uli Roth was on the cruise, and unfortunately Uli got sick, so he was only able to do one set. But when he played his set, it was so obvious. Well, I knew that he doesn't use backing tracks, but it was so obvious that there was some interplay between him and the guys in the band, because he would solo and he would turn around and give them a cue, like, okay, I'm done, here we go, let's move on. Or he would look at other people and you could see them making eye contact and, just playing it kind of in the moment. And it created, and it had this very sort of loose, natural feel to it. In fact, at the end of his set, Uli went, "Oh, I thought I timed this out right, but we've actually got 5 more minutes. So, we're going to jam on Jimi Hendrix's All Along the Watchtower." And I know he's played that song before. I've seen clips of him. But still, they just sort of pulled it out. They weren't planning on playing it, but they did it anyways. And he jammed on it, and it was absolutely awesome. And these bands that used the backing tracks, what you notice, because you get to see them 2 times on the ship, is that they get up and they're doing the exact same show. They're stopping at the same time. The singer is talking at the same time between the same songs, and they're basically saying the exact same thing. And the guitar player moves up by the keyboard player in the same spot, and it just makes it so like you're watching a pre-recorded thing or something. You know, it doesn't feel like it's live. There's no spontaneity. There's no like just kind of going for it. Dragon Force was on the boat, and I didn't see Dragon Force, but when we got back, I was looking on YouTube, and I saw a clip of the guitar player. I think his name is Herman Lee, and it was from another cruise, and he's soloing, and he goes out, and he jumps in the pool on the boat. They're on like the upper deck of the boat, and he gets on somebody's shoulders, and they go into the pool, and he's rocking. And I thought, like, man, that's like, what a cool thing, spontaneous. And everybody there, I'm sure, will absolutely remember that, that he came off stage, he jumped on somebody's shoulders, and he was rocking out, soloing while they walked him through, while everybody was jumping into the pool with him and cheering. I mean, that's a once in a lifetime thing. Now, that's kind of a unique thing. But again, back in the day, bands, every show was its own kind of thing. Listen to any of these bands from the 70s and their bootleg shows and live shows, and you'll hear this, how different all of them were. So it's just, for me personally, that's what I prefer. I don't want my bands to sound just like the record. I want to feel like I've gotten a one-time, unique, in the moment experience. And in my opinion, the backing tracks, although it makes it sound full and lush and all these vocals and everything, I don't really care. To me, it makes it stiff and sterile and takes away from the quote live feel of it. So, okay, let me know in the comments down below, where are you guys at? Do you want your band to sound exactly like the album when you see them live, or do you prefer for it to be different? Do you like your live experience to be different and not sound like the record? Let me know in the comments down below. Till we see you again, make sure you stay heavy, stay metal.